though this is just obviously memorizing the words. So a couple of reminders. If you imagine a guitar has strings and they make a chord, there's a hint to what a chord might be. Terry's chocolate orange is cut into segments, so you can have a look at that shape. And a sector, imagine a radar. What type of shape does that make? And that might help you remember most of them. I could go and talk off on a tangent, perhaps. Anyway, just something to help you remember. Question 1. Question 2, recognize that we've not got the original and we have to work backwards on this one. So always make sure you recognize what the question is asking us to do. So we're not finding 12% of the original, so we're not dividing by 100, but we're going to divide by 88. Find 1%, and then you can find 100%, which would be the original. Okay, question 3. Divide the total number of blueberries by how many you need on each dessert. That should be a little hint for you because it just asks you what does K represent? So get your head around that. Part B on here, the little b stands for how many blueberries would be on each dessert, and D is how many desserts. So if you multiply these, how many desserts you need and how many are on each dessert, that'll be the total number of blueberries, and that should always be the same. Okay, so on this one, if you look, if we put 5, 6, 7, 8 on the spinner, we can't quite work out the probabilities because we have to fill out the other 2. It does mention that the probability of an even number is the probability of 7. So let's look at probability is even. Well, if we put, let's say, an odd number and an even number here, we can see that even, we have 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 out of 6. So the probability of it being even, right, would be a half, or 3 out of 6. Alternatively, what if instead of an odd number and an even number, we put another odd number? That means that the number of even numbers is just these 2 out of 6. And what else would we have? Oh yeah, so instead, what if we put 2 even numbers here? Okay, so now we have 4 out of 6. That's the probability of getting even. Now, if we look at our clue up here, this is just saying that the probability of even is the probability of getting a 7. So we have to work out what's going on the counter, and then we'll work out what's the probability of getting 5. Okay, so probability of getting 7. Well, obviously, what we've got is we've got the chance we can change what we've put in here. So let's say if we put another 7 in there, the probability of getting a 7 would be 3 out of 6. So we can kind of change that a little bit. So if we didn't have 7s in there, but like before we had 5, then obviously the probability of getting a 7 would be 1 out of 6. Or we could have 1 7 in there, couldn't we? And then the probability of getting a 7 will be 2 out of 6. So let's see if you can work out the rest of the question. Okay, so that's question 4. Question 4b. We need to remember, out of all the possibilities, what do they add up to? Okay, and now we should know that. Okay, question 5 here. We should know what the intercept is. So when we've got over here, we've got a straight line graph because it's in the form y equals mx plus c. So we should know what the intercept is and how to find that. So I shouldn't tell you that. But where it crosses is the y coordinate. We need to find the other coordinates, or we're given the other coordinates. Similarly, we have to find the coordinates at D. Okay, so what we need to know here is there is a trick we can use with straight line graphs, and that is if we know one of the coordinates, in this case, we know that y is 0, we can substitute it in and rearrange it and then find out what the x coordinate would be. Okay, that's how we would do it on this. So it says the value of the y-intercept, which is here, is, now I've made it very easy. That's not really a hint, is it, where it crosses the y? What about the next bit? The x-coordinate of the turning point. So here is the turning point. So it's called a turning point because we're going up there and then we end up turning and going around there, or sometimes called, in this case, the maximum. We don't know that, but thankfully they only ask us for the x-coordinate. So where would this be? And the hint that you need to know is that it is symmetrical. So you're going to look at the distance between -2 and -8. Okay, and find what is the middle of that. Okay, that is your challenge, and that will be the x coordinate there. Okay, next. 6, we work out that. Now it's a calculator paper. So can you put your buttons in there with the correct powers and brackets? Standard form has to be in where we have a number that's between 1, but then less than 10. So you can have 1 or 1 point something, and it can go up to 9.9, whatever. Okay, and then you put the power 10. Okay, next. The interesting thing is, though, the calculator should give your answer in standard form. Anyway, the coin flipped 200 times. A bit of logic here. The best estimate. So if you just did it 50 times, would that be as good an estimate as if you did it 200 times? Okay, so that should be something you should know. Question 8, the formula. Speed is distance over time. And it is a distance and time graph. So then the question is, work out the speed. So as marked on the graph, you work out, all you have to do is work out that calculation and get your units right and read it off here. 1 point on the gradient, you can create a triangle, choose a point where it crosses exactly on the grid, like there or there. Okay, either would be fine to create a triangle. I have been told that in science they want you to use like the full graph, but any triangle is fine for your maths. Okay, that should be okay for 8. Question 9. The hard thing here is remembering the notation. So P and Q, remind yourself that this is the intersection. So you can see the little N sign there that we have for the intersection. I'm leaving it up to you to think what the intersection is. The other one is PUQ, which is the union of both, and that would be both of them. Okay, it's not asking for them both, but that's PUQ. Okay, question 10. 90,000 passengers a year. So the easiest way to do that is first you're going to find 3%. So it says it's increased 3%. So find 3% and add it on. And then the next year we do the same, but we find 8% and add it on. I'm trusting you can find that. Those of you that want the shortcut, if you multiply something by 1.03, that's the multiplier, and that'll give you the final total with 3% added on. Okay. Then when you get the answer, if you want to be very fancy, you get that total, and then you want to increase it by 8%. Well, if you put 1.08, then that will give you the full total as well. Okay, so 2 different methods to do that. Okay, question 11. Scales on a map. Remember, 1 to 20,000, they could be in the same unit. Okay, so centimeters to centimeters. or meters to meters. But if you've got a map, then obviously 1 centimeter on the map would be representing 20,000 in real life. Now we have got 15 centimeters on the map. So instead of 1 centimeter, multiply it by 15, but you would do the same to the other side. Remember to change it to kilometers. Okay. Question 12. Important to remember what congruent triangles are. So a little diagram for you here. So congruent triangles, if I just move it, they are exactly the same size. You can see on this little diagram as well, they are exactly the same size and shape. Even if you flip them over, they would be the same size and shape. Okay, so if you look, there are different types here. There's ASA, RHS, SAS. So you can revise those. You can see them all there. So you can pause that and revise that. In this question, you're just going to see which one fits. So on here, you can see there are no angles. Okay, so that makes it very straightforward which one you're going to choose. Question 13. So there are quite a number of questions that have these tables and with these, regions here. Okay. Now in this case, we've got to estimate the mean. Okay, the mean distance. So they've been nice. They've helped us out and they've said you find the midpoint. Now, if they hadn't given us that hint, we have to remember that if we're finding an estimate of the mean distance, we're going to find the midpoint of what is up here. Okay, so halfway between 7 and 7.4 would be 7.2. You do the same for the others. Now, you imagine this. The length of the jump, we don't know the exact length of the jump. So for the top one, it's somewhere between 7 and 7.4. We're going to approximate 7.2. And then we imagine there were 15 jumps of that length. So you times them together and get your answer. Okay. For the next region, you find the midpoint and multiply it by 18, and you'll find how many is there. Okay. And then what you do is we want an estimate of the total length. And that's because if you look down here, you find an estimate of the mean is the total distance, or as I said up here, the total length, divided by the number of jumps, because we're going to share that by, and you look, they've already told us the total number of jumps. So that should be enough to give you an answer on that. And question 14, we say, so we've given this, we have to recognize that it is a quadratic graph. And this is this U-shaped graph. And if there was no C added on, okay, it would just go through there, although it would be curved and not like line. This one you can see I've sketched a bit above, and we want to know what the C is on here, okay? And the way to do it is they've given us a coordinate, and as ever, we can substitute into a formula. So 15 and 3, and that will help us find what C is, which will be where it crosses there. Okay, and then we can substitute again because X for there is 7, and then we can find out what W is. Okay, part B, I don't know. It just feels a bit strange, the question, because it says, in fact, it's a straight line, but they've given us an equation that's not a straight line. So it's not really possible to tell on that one. And then finally, to get, this was up to 40, just over 40 marks you would get up to question 15. In this one, 10.9 kilograms per second for 30 minutes. So find for 1 second, it's 10.9. So how many kilograms would be poured in 1 minute? And then we can work out for 30 minutes. And then we can convert it to tons. So there's all your hints to get over 40 marks.